Part 5, Planning Process and Cycle. Today we will discuss about the planning process and planning cycle. First we will understand about planning process. One of the most important management functions is planning. It entails setting the company's goals and then managing the resources to attain those goals. As you might expect, it is a methodical procedure with well thought out phases. Let us now examine the planning procedure. Being aware of business prospects in the firm's external environment as well as within the firm is an important aspect of the planning process. Once such opportunities are identified, managers may identify the steps that must be done to actualize them. A realistic assessment of these new prospects is required, as well as a SWOT, strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats, analysis. The basic phases that are useful in practically any type of planning process is shown below in diagram. These steps can be customized to use for unique planning needs. Your selection on the type of planning process you require will determine how much time you must set aside, who should be engaged, and how and when they should be involved. Planning cycle. The planning cycle involves the following 8 key steps. Step 1, Planning, preparing to plan, ensuring commitment. Step 2, Analysis. Analyze the situation and needs. Step 3, Goal and purpose. Prioritize and select the goal and purpose. Step 4, Specific objectives. Develop clear specific objectives. Step 5, Identify strategies. Identify alternative strategies and select the most effective strategy. Step 6, Implementation. Plan implementation. Step 7, Evaluation. Plan for evaluation. Step 8, Summary of plan. Summarize your plan. Here we will discuss the principles of planning. In the below diagram you can see the following principles. In this approach, lower and middle management are in charge of developing plans in accordance with the upper management's rules and boundaries. Every plan is subject to choose and discussion, and a middle route is picked to promote seamless plan execution. The following are the kind of topics you must debate and resolve here. What kind of planning do we need to perform? How long should we devote to each step? How much time and other resources will we require to complete the planning process? Do we need additional information on previous experience, successes, or the situation we hope to impact before we begin planning, and if so, who will obtain it, how will they get it, where will they receive it, and from whom? Who are our major stakeholders? Don't overlook your own organization's employees. How critical is their participation in the effective implementation of our plans? How critical is it that each major stakeholder group understands and agrees on planning decisions? What is the importance and/or influence of each major stakeholder group? In the planning process, whose needs, interests, and concerns should be prioritized? How valuable or necessary would their participation be at each stage of the planning process? What level of engagement is appropriate for each major stakeholder at each stage of the process? How will we obtain the necessary commitment to the planning process from each important stakeholder? How should each stakeholder prepare in order to participate effectively? What information will they require beforehand? Is a planning committee or group required to guarantee the process proceeds smoothly? When will the planning begin, and what deadlines should we establish for each step's completion? Who will lead each session? Who will maintain and distribute a record of our conversations? When must the record be disseminated after each step? In this approach, lower and middle management are in charge of developing plans in accordance with the upper management's rules and boundaries. Every plan is subject to choose and discussion, and a middle route is picked to promote seamless plan execution. Step 2, Analysis, the situation and needs. This step 2 entails gathering and analyzing information that will be required to determine a goal and purpose, which is relevant to your target community, realistic in terms of what is achievable and likely to make a difference, the most effective and suitable contribution based on the existing situation you wish to alter. You will require sufficient knowledge to answer the following questions via rigorous analysis. What are the key difficulties encountered by our target community? Which of these is the most important or central problem or issue? What are the origins and consequences of this issue? Can we fairly expect to make a meaningful contribution to tackling this issue? What impact does this problem or issue have on our major stakeholders? What are there though do key stakeholders stand to benefit or suffer as a result of our taking on this problem or issue? What impact does this have on our work and planning? What previous experience do we have that is relevant to this problem or issue, and what can we learn from it? What can our organization reasonably anticipate accomplishing? What resources and capabilities are available to us both inside and outside of our organization? What does this indicate for our strategy? What are their worries and interests about the topic or issue? This phase in the planning process establishes the foundation for the subsequent steps. The process of developing a deeper awareness of the problem, the situation, and your organization is critical for both your organization's personnel and your target community. It establishes the foundation for mutual understanding, more effective judgments, and a commitment to strategic action. This step's reasoning will serve as the foundation for your decisions in all subsequent phases. Will serve as the foundation for your decisions in all subsequent phases. In the next steps, you will make important decisions when you choose. Goal: a clear explanation of the long-term change you would like to see. This is often not something you can accomplish on your own, but it is a significant improvement that will enhance the lives of your target population. This is the long-term aim that your organization has decided it must help to achieve. Clarifying this broad aim aids in keeping the rest of your planning focused on what will actually contribute to change, even if it is only a small component of a larger and longer-term change. Purpose: contribution of your organization to the objective. This should be a clear explanation of what your organization intends to achieve. This must be something that will make a substantial contribution to the attainment of the objective. However, it must also be something that your organization can practically do on its own. Objectives: specific statements of what has to be achieved results by your organization to reach the organization's purpose. Activities: clear decisions about who will do what and by when in order to achieve each objective. Each of these options builds on the previous ones, but they all rely on how effectively you did the analysis. The analysis assists you in determining whether your aim, purpose, objectives, and actions are relevant, valuable, and practical. The next stage is to choose a goal and purpose that are both relevant to the demands of your target audience and realistic in the circumstances. The requirements analysis will help you guarantee that your decision about the future condition you want to create is founded on a thorough grasp of the problem, its causes, and repercussions. Step 3. Setting goals/objectives. This step 3 is the most crucial phase in the planning process. Here we set the goals for the entire business as well as specific departments. Organizational objectives offer a broad direction, whereas departmental objectives are more organized and specific. Long-term and short-term goals are both possible. They represent the desired end result of the firm. As a result, managers' aims will filter down to employees, guiding and pushing them in the right way. Choosing a goal is critical because it tells you what kind of change you want to see in your business. A goal is a clear description of the future condition you would like to come about. The term responsibility refers to the act of determining whether or not a person is responsible for his or her own actions. They explain why we do the things we do. Goals are also the final foundation on which you judge what you have achieved. This is a critical strategic choice when designing a plan for your organization. Everything else you do will be guided by your vision of what you want to see. Once we know what your goal is, you must decide on the mission of your organization. Why do we exist and how will we contribute to accomplishing it? The goal is a clear and specific declaration of what you intend to accomplish. The goal should be something you can actually accomplish as a result of your efforts. Agreeing a purpose involves making a definite commitment to accomplishing this objective. If you're creating an organizational strategy, The purpose describes why your company exists and what its objective is. The aim of a program or project must be stated in the program or project plan. This should be based on the broader strategic aim and purpose of the organization as outlined in its strategy. In this step you will use your needs analysis to decide: what is the future scenario to which you will contribute? What is the most relevant goal? What is the most clear and specific manner of communicating this goal? What can you accomplish, as an organization, program, or project, that will make the most substantial and helpful contribution to accomplishing the agreed upon goal? What is the most important but also the most attainable goal, for our organization, program, or project? What external circumstances must exist for you to fulfill your objective and purpose? How crucial are these to your success? Can you affect them, and if so, how? This will need to be factored into your future planning. If they are significant, unlikely to come about yet you can't affect them, does this indicate the aim and purpose are unrealistic? When you settle on a goal and purpose, it is critical to understand that you are making a decision. These decisions must be strategic, chosen from among possibilities as the most beneficial, since they will affect all of your subsequent planning. They must also be as explicit as possible in order to serve as a record of agreement that may guide your future decisions and activities and serve as a foundation for analyzing your progress. In the following stage you will be deciding on clear, precise targets that will help you to reach your goal. Step 4. Develop clear, specific objectives. Step 4. Planning is always done with the future in mind, but the future is never definite. As a result, some assumptions must be made in the management function. These assumptions are referred to as premises. These assumptions are created in the form of projections, current plans, previous policies, and so on. These planning facilities are also divided into two types, internal and exterior. External assumptions address aspects such as the political environment, social environment, technological progress, competitiveness, government policies, and so on. Internal assumptions concern policies, resource availability, management quality, and so forth. These assumptions should be consistent throughout the company. All managers should be aware of and agree with these principles. Objectives are specific outcomes that must be met in order to attain the goal. The objectives should be as detailed and clear as feasible. They should explain the outcome you want to reach rather than what you plan to do to get there. This allows you to concentrate on the impact of your job rather than just your activities. It also allows you to assess what was accomplished in terms of real-world changes, rather than just what you did. Objectives should be more detailed and definite than goals, and they should be related to accomplishing goals. In this step you will use your needs analysis and your agreed goal and purpose to decide what precise results are needed to fulfill your purpose. The requirements analysis includes an investigation of the sources and consequences of the problem. Do the causes you discovered offer you a notion of what must change in order to accomplish your purpose? What objectives will we have to attain to reach the purpose? Is it feasible to make your goals more explicit by specifying when they should be met, who should benefit, how many or how much must be met, and how well? Can you actually get these outcomes? If not, can you increase your capacity to accomplish them by, for example, forming alliances and strengthening your organizational capacity? Do you need to develop targets to take account of these things? If you can't develop your ability to get the outcomes required to attain the goal, you'll have to go back and make the goal more achievable. What external conditions must exist for you to attain your goals effectively? How probable are they to happen? Is there anything you can do to affect the circumstance such that these conditions exist? To include implementing changes to include in order of course correct spelling outlining your ideas to include are your goals realistic if they are significant and unlikely to occur, but you can't affect them? Once you have established clear, defined, and agreed upon objectives, you can begin preparing the activities you will take to attain them. The foundations of this procedure are the aim, purpose, and goals. The term electronic commerce refers to the sale of electronic goods. Step 5. Identify alternative strategies and select the most effective strategy. The step 5 in the planning process is for managers to determine the choices open to them. There is no single way to meet the firm's goals, instead, there are several options. All of these alternate paths must be recognized. The management must have alternatives accessible to him. Perhaps he adopts an inventive option in the hopes of achieving more efficient outcomes. If he does not want to experiment, he will follow the more conventional path. The issue with this stage is not identifying alternatives but limiting them down to a manageable number of options so that all of them may be fully analyzed. This phase is attempting to determine the best method of attaining your goals. Strategy is the decision we make about the best way to accomplish something. The term electronic commerce refers to the sale of electronic goods. It allows us to avoid just assuming that there is a correct way to accomplish anything and drives us to investigate options that we may not have considered sufficiently previously. This is critical if you want to discover new and more productive methods of doing things. Doing things the same way every time may not be strategic. You won't know unless you intentionally consider alternative possibilities and put them to the test with an open mind. Organizations who do not constantly test their thinking in order to come up with better and more relevant strategies make the most blunders and waste in development efforts. In this step, you will use the deeper understanding of the problem and stakeholder needs developed in your needs analysis to decide what are the different strategies you may employ to attain each objective. What criteria will you use to examine each approach, e.g. relevancy, realism, etc., in order to determine the most effective and realistic alternative? What is the most effective technique for reaching each aim based on these criteria? What external circumstances will need to exist for you to properly implement each strategy? How vital are they to your approach succeeding? How probable are they to happen? Is there anything you can do to affect the circumstance such that these conditions exist? You will need to include these things as part of your approach. Is your approach realistic if they are significant and unlikely to exist, but you can't change them? What materials will be required? Is this possible? Once you've decided on realistic and successful techniques for accomplishing each of your goals, you can begin planning how to put them into action by creating activity plans. Step 6. Plan implementation. This step 6 entails extensive preparation for how you will apply the methods you've chosen. This is when all of the other management tasks kick in and the strategy is put into action to meet the organization's goals. The instruments necessary for such execution include many forms of plans, such as processes, policies, budgets, norms, and standards. You will utilize your judgments regarding the most effective technique for achieving each goal to determine what significant tasks will be needed to implement each strategy. Who will be responsible? The term electronic commerce refers to the sale of electronic goods. What deadlines should be established? What particular resources will be necessary to carry out the actions required to implement each strategy? Why? You are now ready to put the finishing touches on your strategy by planning for evaluation/examining of the followings. This step 6 entails extensive preparation for how you will apply the methods you've chosen. This is when all of the other management tasks kick in and the strategy is put into action to meet the organization's goals. The instruments necessary for such execution include many forms of plans, such as processes, policies, budgets, norms, and standards. You will utilize your judgments regarding the most effective technique for achieving each goal to determine what significant tasks will be needed to implement each strategy. Who will be responsible? The term electronic commerce refers to the sale of electronic goods. What deadlines should be established? What particular resources will be necessary to carry out the actions required to implement each strategy? You are now ready to put the finishing touches on your strategy by planning for evaluation/examining of the followings. Examining alternate course of action. The following phase in the planning process is to review and thoroughly investigate each alternative plan. Every alternative will be scrutinized, with all of its advantages and disadvantages considered. Alternative plans must be considered in light of the organizational goals. As an example, consider a financial strategy. In that instance, a risk-return analysis will be performed. To guarantee that the plan is capable of fulfilling the objectives in the best and most efficient way possible, detailed calculations and analysis are performed. 13.6.2 Selecting the alternative. Finally, we arrive to the planning process's decision-making step. The finest and most practical proposal will now be picked for implementation. The optimal plan is the most lucrative with the fewest negative repercussions and is also adaptive to changing circumstances. Obviously, the decision is founded on scientific study and quantitative computations. However, a manager's instincts and expertise should also play a significant role in this decision. A few diverse components of multiple plans are sometimes blended to create the one ideal plan. 13.6.3 Formulating supporting plan. Managers must develop one or more supporting plans after selecting the strategy to be implemented. These auxiliary plans aid in the execution of the primary strategy. Plans to employ additional people, train workers, extend the office, and so on are examples of supporting plans for the main goal of introducing a new product. As a result, all of these auxiliary plans are a component of the primary plan. The plans you establish in the following step regarding when you will review, who will be participating, and how you will gather the information you need should then be included as activities to the implementation plan you just created. Step 7, Plan for evaluation. This step 7 is deciding how you will assess your progress and what has been accomplished effectively. This needs to be done at the planning stage so that it can drive implementation by maintaining a clear record of agreements on what successful attainment implies. It aids in plan clarification by ensuring that everyone knows what you aim to do in the same way. It also guarantees that you have a clear and agreed upon foundation for evaluating what was really accomplished and your progress along the way. If you have followed the systematic approach to planning indicated in the preceding part, you will already have a very valuable base for monitoring your progress and assessing your results. In this step you will use your needs analysis and overall plan to finally decide what criteria or indications you would use to evaluate progress and successes in connection to your aim, purpose, and particular goals. When you will monitor progress and assess successes. Where and from whom you will acquire the knowledge you need. Who should be involved in tracking progress and assessing accomplishments? How you intend to get the necessary information. The term electronic commerce refers to the sale of electronic goods. All that remains is to summarize your strategy in a nice, concise, and easy-to-use format that will serve as a valuable record and guide for all individuals who will be involved in successfully implementing it. Step 8, Summarize plan. Step 8 is to maintain by summarizing strategy as you go along and disseminating it to everyone, along with a summary of the conversation after each stage. This ensures that you have a clear record of your decisions at each stage, which you may refer to in the following phase. If you have followed the logical framework approach given in the section on how to plan systematically, you should have a helpful record of your conversations that you can use to examine your reasoning to see whether it all makes sense. Keep a detailed note of your decisions. Direct implementation. Monitor external conditions and make modifications if your assumptions do not show to be valid. Explain your plans to any donors or anyone whose help and support you intend to seek. Assess progress and accomplishments, and when you begin the next planning process, review your prior thinking, and enhance it based on what you learned throughout the implementation and evaluation stages. Planning and decision-making determines the future path of action and entails selecting one among several options. From this perspective, decision-making and planning are intertwined and mutually dependent. Truly, planning as a whole, with its components, is the result of decision-making. Management must always seek long-term and short-term future direction by estimating and analyzing the future behavior of the relevant environment and identifying the enterprise's planned function. The below diagram is helping the managers in decision-making. General definition. Decision-making is the process of identifying a set of feasible alternatives and choosing a course of action from them. Decision-making is a part of planning. Decision-making is an intermediate-sized set of activities that begins with an identifying problem and ends with choice-making or decision-giving. The following diagram explains the process of planning and decision-making. It determines the future path of action and entails selecting one among several options. From this perspective, decision-making and planning are intertwined and mutually dependent. Truly, planning as a whole, with its components, is the result of decision-making. Management must always seek long-term and short-term future direction by estimating and analyzing the future behavior of the relevant environment and identifying the enterprise's planned function. As you know, decision-making has a significant impact on planning and is an integral aspect of the planning process, and planning is inextricably linked. However, decision-making has a broader meaning than planning. This means that the application of decision-making extends beyond the planning horizon. In any firm, practically every position is a decisional center. Decision-making is essential not just in planning, but also in other management responsibilities such as planning, organizing, directing, and controlling. The core job of management is planning, which is choosing in advance what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, how it should be done, and who will do it. It is an intellectual process that establishes an organization's goals and creates numerous action plans to help the organization reach those goals. It lays out precisely how to achieve a particular objective. Planning is simply thinking before doing something. It enables us to look into the future and choose in advance how to handle the problems we will face in the future. It requires logical reasoning and sound judgment. If we overlook the value of planning, it should be prepared to improve our personal traits, professional abilities, and organizational culture in order to succeed with good planning. Last but not least, we must be willing to change. We cannot get different results until we attempt new ways. I hope you enjoyed this video, and before leaving, if you have not already subscribed this channel, make sure to subscribe, like and hit the bell icon to get updates when I post new videos. Provide your feedback in comments. You can download material from the below links under video.